All right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We are back. We are continuing with our look at the book of Numbers. This week we are dealing with Numbers chapter 34. We are really close to the end of this book. But there's a few more things that we want to look at in the book of Numbers this week. With Numbers 34, we want to think about this is the land. This portion is called This is the Land. And we want to deal with your inheritance. Your inheritance. As we look at the this Torah portion, we'll be able to see that within it is a very important principle inside of this Torah portion that we learn and that we'll see is something that the Most High exhibits throughout the scriptures, and we'll deal with that. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll just go ahead and read through chapter 34, and we'll go ahead and bring out the important issues here as we go. Let me go ahead and pull up for us here. Numbers. All right, put this on the screen here. All right, go ahead and read that nice and loud.
It says, "And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come into the land of Canaan, this is the land which falls to you as an inheritance, the land of Canaan to its boundaries. Then your southern border shall be from the wilderness of Sin along the border of Edom, and your southern border shall be eastward from the end of the Salt Sea. Then your border shall turn from the southern side of the ascent of Akrabim, continue to Sin, and be on the south of Kadesh Barnea, and it shall go to the Hatzar Adar, and continue to Atzmon. And the border shall turn from Atzmon to the Wadi of Mitzrayim, and it shall end at the sea. As for the western border, you shall have the great sea for a border. This is your western border. And this is your northern border. From the great sea, you mark out your borderline to Mount Or. And from Mount Hor, you mark out your border to the entrance of Hamath, and the edge of the border shall be toward Sedad. And the border shall proceed to Ziphron, and it shall end at Hatzar Enan. This is your northern border. And you shall mark out your eastern border from Hatzar Enan to Shepham. And the border shall go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ayin. And the border shall go down and reach to the eastern side of the Sea of Kinnereth. And the border shall go down along the Yarden, and it shall end at the Salt Sea. This is your land with its surrounding boundaries. And Moshe commanded the children of Israel, saying, This is the land which you inherit by lot, which Yahweh has commanded to give to the 9 tribes and to the half tribe. For the tribe of the children of Israel, of the children of Reuben, according to the house of the fathers, and the tribe of the children of Gad, according to the house of their fathers, have received their inheritance, and the half tribe of Manasseh has received its inheritance. The 2 tribes of the half tribe and the half tribe have received their inheritance beyond the Yarden of Jericho, eastward toward the sunrise. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, These are the names of the men who divide the land among you as an inheritance: Eleazar the priest, and Yehoshua son of Nun. And take 1 leader of every tribe to divide the land for the inheritance. And these are the names of the men from the tribe of Yehudah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. And from the tribe of the children of Simeon, Shemuel son of Ammihud. From the tribe of Benjamin, Eladad son of Kislon. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Dan, Buki son of Yogli. And from the sons of Joseph, a leader from the tribe of the children of Manasseh, Haniel son of Ephod. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Ephraim, Kemuel son of Shiftan. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Zebulun, Elitzaphan son of Parnak. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Issachar, Paltiel son of Azan. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Asher, Ahihud son of Shalumi. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Naphtali, Pedael son of Ammihud. These are the ones Yahweh commanded to divide the inheritance among the children of Israel in the land of Canaan.
Okay. Very good. All right. So, let's go back. You want to always remember that, these things that we see inside of Scripture, everything in here is irrelevant. It is relevant. None of it is irrelevant. We are always able to look and find, treasures and nuggets that the Most High has given to us for our learning. And what we want to do here is go back and think about the fact that this chapter here gives us a very important principle that is something that the Most High will find as part of his actual character. Okay, so let us go back to verse number 2. Verse 2, we want to look at over here where it says, this is a land which falls. Let's pull up our tools over here. We looked at verse 2. I want to look at this word here, falls. That shall fall, which is nafal in the Hebrew, which means to fall. It literally means to fall. Let's see if we look at this in the let's see, we have the word study. Here we go. To fall, to lie, to prostrate oneself, to overthrow. When we talk about the land of Canaan, it is indeed about to be overthrown by Israel. And so we see this word here, gives us a picture into what is about to happen in regards to the inheritance. The inheritance, which in fact is the land. But think about inheritance is something that's inherited, something that's occupied, an estate, right? Something that you inherit. And again, in this case, over here, we're dealing with the land. And so when we think about this whole idea of Israel inheriting the land of Canaan, the ability for this land to fall into the hands of Israel, and for them to be able to inherit it, this is all the favor of the Most High. This is all the favor of the Most High that allows for this land to fall into their hands and for them to inherit it. And so we want to look at a word here. Let me pull up the dictionary. We want to look up, let's see, this word is 2580. Here we go. Cain. Okay, which is, here, let me make this bigger here so we can see the whole thing. Graciousness, okay, kindness, favor, all right, grace, gracious, pleasant, precious, well favored. And so when we think about this here, let's see, this word here, Cain, is from this word here, which is Canaan, which is to bend or stoop in kindness to an inferior, to favor, bestow, implore. And so when we think about the idea of bending or stooping in kindness, right? The idea of someone bestowing upon you something. What happened to my focus there? Hold on one second here. All right, hold on. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so the idea of bestowing, bending down, and offering something to your inferior, right? So we have the Almighty Yah, who's bending down and bestowing upon his people the land, right? He's giving his people the land. He's causing the land and the people to fall and become an inheritance to Israel. And so when we think about the fact that Israel went and fought the people, though, they went and fought the people, but they conquered the people, right? So there was a thing that they did, but the Most High gave them the strength and the power to win. All right? That's grace. Okay? The manifestation of Yah's favor towards the people was the strengthening and enabling of them to perform his will and succeed. Okay, that's grace actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, the manifestation of Yah's favor towards his people was the strengthening and the enabling of them to perform his will. You know, that's grace. They went in, they fought. They didn't just go and stand there and then the people just, you know, disappeared or died instantaneously, right? They went over there and they fought. But again, when we think about ancient Israel, you know, they went over and they battled all of these nations that were actually mightier than them. It wasn't that Israel was this big mighty nation. It was that they had the favor of the Most High, and He enabled them and strengthened them to perform His will. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's grace. Okay, not by their own physical strength, right? Not by their own might, but by the power of Yah. Okay, so we want to talk about actually grace, because we see grace in the fact that the Most High came and just said, there's that land over there, you can have it, go get it, it's yours, right? Let's look at some scriptures over here. Let's go to the Apocrypha. Here, let's close this up here so we can get more, so we can see this a little better. Let's go to let's see here, chapter 3. Read for us verse 9.
They that put their trust in him shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in love shall abide with him. For grace and mercy is to his saints, and he hath care for his elect.
Okay, very good. So we have to understand something, and that is the fact that grace is, in fact, something that is part of the character of the Most High. The fact that, and by the way, grace is not this abstract idea. It is an action, right? It is the process of me or someone bestowing kindness on another. Okay, and so it's an action. There's action involved in grace, and so when we think about the idea of mercy and grace to His saints, there's things that are incorporated in this. It's just not ideas, right? There's actions involved in this, and you know what we'll see here is that this, again, like I said, is part of the character of the Most High. Grace. Okay, let's go over to let's go back to Scriptures version. Oh, we gotta go to the verse first. Let's go back to the book of Numbers. Chapter 6. Let's read 24. Oh, sorry. 6. 24 through 27.
Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you, and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you, and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them.
Okay, very good. When we think about the idea, again, of this Aharonic blessing over here, we're talking about, again, the character of the Most High being manifest to his people. And part of this includes his favor. Right? Part of this includes his favor. What is this word here? This is our word here. Favor. Okay? And so, again, when we think about this, this is his character. This is his spirit. This is the spirit of the Almighty coming upon his people. Right? His favor, his character. Right? Exodus. Exodus 34. Read for us 6 and 7.
And Yahweh passed before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, an El compassionate and showing favor, patient and great in loving commitment and truth, watching over loving commitment for thousands, forgiving crookedness and transgression and sin, but by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children, and the children's children to the third and the fourth generation.
Okay, very good. So again, we see, here's our word here, favor. When we look at this in its full context, we actually see Yeshua in this, in these verses over here. Mm-hmm. We see the fact that Yahweh came down in the cloud and stood with him there. And then as he stood with him there, Moses that is, and proclaimed the name of Yahweh, and Yahweh passed by him and proclaimed. And so we see that we have Moses, we have Yahweh standing by Moses, and then we also have Yahweh passing by Moses, proclaiming his word, which in fact is his character, which in fact includes showing favor. Okay, and so we have this and we have this example here of all of these different attributes of the Most High, and again the thing that we're concentrating on right now is this idea of favor or grace. Okay, and so when we think about grace, again, it is divine activity, right? That enables Elohim to confront the physical realm. Okay, there's a thing that happens. Again, we think about favor, when we think about grace, right? This is an action. Right, so when we think about the idea of showing favor, it's not just a thought, right? I don't show favor by thinking nice thoughts about someone, right? There's things that that I do to cause favor to be shown towards you, and so again, when we think about the giving of the land towards giving of the land to the people, this is favor. But we have to think back that the giving of the land was actually something that went all the way back to Abraham. Right? He gave the land actually to Abraham. And then because of the fact that Abraham was shown grace and favor, his seed actually benefits, right? And so we think about the fact that Israel, they never worked for the favor of the Most High, right? They never worked for the grace of the Almighty, right? They were given the land, and them receiving the land, or them getting the land is the manifestation of favor of the Almighty, which in fact is a picture of what is to be in the new covenant, right? When we think about this idea of grace, mainstream Christianity tries to make some type of distinction as if grace is some New Testament concept. But again, we're seeing that grace actually is something that is the character of the Almighty. Elohim is gracious in his actions. Psalms. Let's look at Psalms. Psalms 145 and verse 8. What's that say?
Says, Yahweh shows favor and is compassionate, patient, and great in loving commitment.
Okay, very good. The King James says that Yahweh is gracious. Right? Over here it says that Yahweh shows favor, which is basically the same thing. To say that he is gracious is also saying that he shows favor. And he is full of compassion. Right? Because this is his character. Right? He's slow to anger and of great mercy. But again, all of this has to look like something. Right? All of this looks like something, right? And so what this is, again, like I said, the character of the Almighty being manifest. And the way in which he manifests that to Israel, particularly in Numbers chapter 34, is the fact that he is giving over the land to the people. But again, we want to kind of concentrate on the fact that this grace situation that we understand is something that is, again, part of the new covenant. And it's something that the Most High has been operating in from the very beginning. Let's keep on going here. We look at John, the book of John, the gospel according to John. Let's look at, start reading at verse 14 through 17.
Oh, 17, okay. It says, and the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem as of an only brought forth of a father, complete in favor and truth. Yohanan bore witness of him and cried out, saying, this was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has become before me, because he was before me. And of his completeness we all did receive, and favor upon favor. For the Torah was given through Moshe, the favor and the truth came through Yeshua Messiah.
Okay, very good. So we see over here, translation hurts us sometimes when we look at these things. They thought they was helping us by putting this here, but this hurts us, right? This but right here, we think about this verse that we looked at in the King James and what is done over here, for the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Yeshua Messiah. First of all, we have to understand there is no but here, right? And we've already established that grace is something that he's been, the Most High has been exhibiting, exercising towards his people. But what we want to think about is the manifestation of that favor. When we think about the manifestation of that favor, now we're thinking about what it is that Yeshua is doing, right? Yeshua, of course, came and he had a job to do, which was actually to manifest the favor of the Most High towards his people. Okay, the way in which we are, able to receive the favor of the Most High is through Yeshua, right? Because there's no difference. It says that Yeshua was full of grace and truth, but we just read that Yahweh is full of grace in the Psalms, right? And so these things are, they're not opposites, right? They're not things that contrast against. They complement. They help us to understand a singular thing in a better way. Let's look at this word over here in the Greek, because it gives us another way of thinking about this word here, graciousness, gratifying. Oh, here, drop down. Especially the divine influence upon the heart and its reflection in the life. The divine influence upon the heart and its reflection in the life. And so when we think about something that's having a divine influence on your heart, right? Something's having a divine influence on your heart, and then it's reflecting in your life. Something's going on the inside of you, and then for there to be a reflection of that externally, right? That's what it's saying that grace is. It's saying that grace is that, right? And so again, this idea of grace, when we think about this thing long enough, it helps us to, again, like I said, to understand what in fact is the new covenant, or so some people like to just call it the renewed covenant, right? It's not different. It's the same if we understand it properly. But either way, new or renewed, the idea is that this is something that the Most High has been dealing with since the beginning, right? The idea of him operating towards his people based on his character, and then also infusing his character into his people. All right, let's keep on going. There's a lot to see here. Let's go over to Jeremiah. Okay, read for us the first 4 verses.
It says, "At that time, declares Yahweh, I shall be the Elohim of all the clans of Yisrael. and they shall be my people. Thus said Yahweh, a people escaped from the sword found favor in the wilderness. Israel when it went to find rest. Yahweh appeared to him from afar, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I shall draw you with loving commitment. I am going to build you again, and you shall be rebuilt, O maiden of Israel. Again you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in the dances of those who rejoice.
Okay, very good. So he says over here, the people escaped from the sword, found favor in the wilderness. They found grace in the wilderness. Grace was over there in the wilderness since the beginning. Right? This is something that, again, that the Most High continues to deal with his people. But if we look at this further now, where it says down below here, I am going to build you again. The people, you shall be rebuilt. I'll build you again. You'll be rebuilt, O you virgin of Israel. At this point, if we're talking about at this point, Israel, has become a harlot, right? Which is far from a maiden, right? But he said, I'm going to build you again, and you'll be rebuilt, O maiden of Israel. Again, you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in dancing of those who rejoice. The Most High is going to renew a thing with his people again. He's going to exhibit his favor, his grace towards his people. Okay, the Most High is he's always doing it. But again, we can think about this idea of a grace when we look back to Numbers chapter 34. The fact that, again, the people were given this land based on a promise that the Most High made to Abraham, right? Mm-hmm. And so, again, we see over and over that the Most High, he's full of favor, and he's constantly giving acts of favor towards his people. And he talks about this idea of renewing and rebuilding his people and restoring them back to a type of innocence, right? And so when we look at this, we're able to see that the Most High, we keep on reading in chapter 31, we see, the total manifestation of this, dealing with the fact of the transformation of the heart, for his people. And again, this is in fact the new covenant. And so what we want to be able to do is be able to recognize, these new covenant concepts, right? When we think about grace, again, grace is not just this thing, it's not just an idea, it's action. But when we think about, again, the definition of what it is, especially when we think about it in the way that it's used in the New Testament, being this divine influence of the heart, again, this is the Ruach HaKodesh, right? Let's look at 2 Corinthians. Second Corinthians and verse 12. What does chapter 12 verse 9?
And he said to me, my favor is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, then, I shall rather boast in my weakness, so that the power of Messiah rests on me.
Okay, very good. So when we look at this over here, right, it's interesting to look at this. Again, the King James over here says that my grace, same thing, favor, is sufficient for you. But this is not to say that the Most High has some idea that's good enough for you. Right? He's not just saying that I have this nice idea, this nice way of thinking about things, and that by itself is sufficient for you. For my power is perfected in weakness. What's he talking about? He's talking about the Ruach HaKodesh. My strength. Hold on. Verse 9 right here where it says my strength. This is what Messiah is saying, right? Is perfected in your weakness. So when we are able to allow for our carnal minds and our physical strength to move out of the way and allow the power of Messiah to strengthen us and move in that, right? This is where we are able to manifest the grace of the Most High. Mm-hmm. Just like Israel, whenever they went over into the land of Canaan and they allowed the favor of the Most High to be sufficient for them, they were able to go and destroy and dispossess the people of those lands. Mm-hmm. And so it's showing us a picture of what it is that we experience in the new covenant with the Ruach HaKodesh. Right? When we are able to allow for the Spirit of the Most High to have influence upon our heart and cause for us to manifest the character of the Most High that He has implanted on the inside of His people. Just like He gave Israel, ancient Israel, this divine strength to go and to perform His will in regards to dispossessing the Canaanites and the 7 nations that were in the land of Canaan. He gives us the strength, power, and ability to go and walk in victory against our carnal minds and the works and deeds of the flesh. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what I wanted to do is to go over to Ephesians, because it's interesting when we look at Ephesians, we're able to see an interesting parallel between the idea of what we see in Numbers chapter 34 in terms of the idea of the people, ancient Israel, about to receive their inheritance, and the connection there that we find between that receiving an inheritance, claiming your inheritance, and the new covenant. So let's go over to Ephesians. Numbers begin to cause us to think about grace, and I just want to continue in that thought. We look at Ephesians, so let's just read. For now, let's read 1 through 5 here.
Shaul, an emissary of Yeshua Messiah by the desire of Elohim, to the set apart ones who are in Ephesus, and true to Messiah Yeshua. Favor to you and peace from Elohim our Father and the Master Yahweh Yeshua Messiah. Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenlies in Messiah, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that he should be set apart and blameless before him in love, having previously ordained us to adoption as sons through Yeshua Messiah to himself, according to the good pleasure of his desire.
Okay, very good. So we look at this again, verse 4, talking about the fact that we should be, as followers of Messiah, be set apart and blameless before him. Right? These things are, it goes with the territory, right? We can't be part of the Most High and his people, and the way in which we live and be and speak and present ourselves is not a set apart, holy and blameless way, right? This is just who we are, right? But verse 5, it says that he has previously ordained us to adoption as sons. Okay, this is interesting because when we look back to Israel, of course, with Israel going into the land, receiving this inheritance, right, from Abraham, according to their reality that they were experiencing, they too were previously ordained to adoption as sons, right? They were there based on the fact that the Most High made a promise to Abraham, right? So we see that the people, ancient Israel, going into the land were receiving this inheritance that they received, not because they was the best nation and they was the ones who caught the eye of the Most High, and he said, "Oh, look at these people, they're great. I'm going to cause them to be my chosen people." No, he previously ordained for those people to be called out of Egypt and walk into their inheritance. Just like we see over here when we see Shaul dealing with this, this thing that's going on with this new covenant. He's talking to a different generation of people, and he's giving you the same idea that, having been previously ordained to be sons through Messiah now, though, to himself, according to the good pleasure of his desire, according to the fact that he wants to manifest kindness to you. This is his desire, right? This is his will, that the manifestation of grace be afforded to his people. Again, this is his character, and he wants for his character to be exhibited, manifest to his people, right? He wants grace to be actualized. Let's look at this over here. Let's look at verse 5. Adoption. Let me move my face out of the way here. Okay, this word here. If I can click on it. Okay, here we go. I don't know how to say that. Greek word. Placing as a son, that is adoption, sonship, children, sons. And so again, when we think about the idea of adoption, it causes us to think about inheritance, right? So we see the idea of the Most High exhibiting his character by way of causing there to be an inheritance for the ones in which he is bestowing his kindness upon.
Mm-hmm.
Inheritance, right? All right, so let's keep on going over here. Let's look at, let's go down, let's see here. Oh, hold on one second. Let me see something here real quick. 1 second here. Oh, yeah, okay. Hold on. Let's go over to read for us Galatians 4. Let's get a full sentence, 4 and 5, I guess.
Says, to redeem those who were under Torah in order to receive the adoption as sons. And because you are sons, Elohim has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father.
He said, because you are sons, you're receiving this inheritance, which is the Spirit of his Son into your hearts. Okay, so there's a connection between the inheritance that you receive because of the favor of the Most High, and the inheritance, the thing that you receive as a result of the favor again, but also the result of you being the actual son, and getting the inheritance, right? And so we see over here now, again, this idea of grace is about you not just having a thought or an idea of kindness from the Most High, but an action that is involved in the manifestation of grace towards you. Just like he gave over the land to his people, he's giving over a different inheritance. Well, actually, it's a more enhanced inheritance, because it's not as if the land is not given over to his people. At the end of the day, the land will return back to its rightful owners, right? And so the land is still part of the situation, but now this thing is enhanced when we talk about the idea of the Ruach HaKodesh. So let's keep on going. Let's read 6 6 and 7. Back to Ephesians, verses 6, 7, 6, 7. Hold on. And 8.
Says, to the praise of the esteem of his favor, with which he favored us in the beloved, in whom we have redemption through his blood, and the forgiveness of trespasses, according to the riches of his favor, which he has lavished on us in all wisdom and insight.
Okay, again, we see over here to the praise of the glory of his favor, or the glory of his grace, which he hath graced us in the beloved. Okay? To the praise of his glory of his grace, which he has freely bestowed to us in the beloved. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of his grace. So this grace equals for us receiving his redemption through his blood. Again, this grace that he's given to us, his favor, looks like something. It looks like the redemption that we receive through his blood. Okay? So again, this grace thing is not this abstract, well, even though it technically is an abstract concept. But again, there's something that is to be realized when we think about grace. Okay? Just like when we think about the idea of love, right? If I say that I love you, I'm not going to slap you around.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to treat you in a certain way. And so the same thing is true when we think about grace, right? Grace, kindness, graciousness looks like something. And the way in which the Most High exhibits his favor towards his people is through the redemption of his blood, the forgiveness of trespasses. It says right here, according to the richness of his favor. You getting all of this because of the richness of his favor. The richness of his grace is about all of this forgiveness and redemption that you get. Okay, so these things are connected with one another. And then verse 8 where it says, which he has lavished on us. He's lavished all of these things on us in all wisdom and insight. And so when we think about wisdom, in the Greek is Sophia, which is wisdom. But the Hebrew equivalent of that would be chukmah, which is wisdom in the Hebrew, which is skill. Or the ability to decide or discern between a thing, right? Or it's the right or proper application of knowledge is wisdom, right? And so again, when we think about wisdom, the right application of knowledge or insight. Here, let me go over here. Or this word here, insight, in verse 8. Oh, wait a second. This word insight, or King James translates it as prudence. Click on it here. Mental action or activity. Right? And so again, we're thinking about this idea of something that is manifest. Oh, and interestingly enough, when we think about this, again, this word here, wisdom, again, we can connect to the word chukmah, which is wisdom in the Hebrew. But this word here, insight, we can connect to the word being, which is understand. To understand or to grasp the meaning or to have comprehension. And so we think about the fact that the Most High has lavished on us in all wisdom and insight. All of these things, we're talking about the manifestation of the Ruach HaKodesh. We think about wisdom and understanding, from a spiritual standpoint. These are things that we receive from the Ruach HaKodesh. Isaiah 11 and verse 2. Read verse 2. Read 1 and 2.
Alright, it says, "And a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his roots shall be fruitful."
That's Yeshua. Talking about Yeshua. Go ahead.
"The spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding."
The spirit of wisdom and prudence, like we just seen right over there and another verse. Go ahead.
"The spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Yahweh."
Okay, very good. This over here, this Ruach HaKodesh being upon this individual over here, again, is the manifestation. Is the manifestation of grace. It's the manifestation of grace. Okay? And so again, this is, this thing that we recognize and understand to be what the new covenant is for us. The fact that the Most High puts his spirit on the inside of us. He bestows grace on us, which empowers us to go and do the will of the Most High, just like he empowered the people to go and destroy the enemies. Let's look at James. We go back to Ephesians. Let's go over to James. James 1. What does it say? 5 and 6.
"If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it shall be given to him. But he should ask in belief, not doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind."
Okay, very good. The only way that we are able to go around and not doubting and not be tossed around like a wave in the sea, driven and being tossed by the wind, is through the Ruach HaKodesh. It's through the wisdom that the Most High puts on the inside of us. Through these spiritual gifts that we receive from the Most High. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is the strong foundation to build upon. I'm going to say it's the only foundation. And this foundation is the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of us. It's the spirit of the Most High inside of us. If any of you lack, he said, let him ask, and he gives us generously without reproach. The King James in verse 5. Here, let me get my arrow over here. He says he gives it liberally and unbraideth not. And we don't speak in these ways anymore. What's he talking about? To defame, or to rail at, or to chide, taunt. If you ask the Most High for what you need the most, which is the spirit inside of you, he's not going to defame you or taunt you or revile you or unbraid you or unravel you. He's going to give it to you generously, right? It shall be given unto you, right? This important thing, this spirit, this manifestation of grace. Okay, so we need to understand that this whole grace thing is not something that's it's not a new thing. It's a thing that the Most High has been operating in from the very beginning. But his manifestation of grace is being manifest, of course, now differently. Right? But conceptually, it's the same. He's empowering his people to go forth and perform his will. Okay, so let's keep on going over it. Because we're going off we're springboarding off of the fact that when we look back at Numbers, that the Most High empowered his people to go and inherit something. And so we're dealing with our inheritance that we receive within the new covenant, and that inheritance is the Spirit of the Most High. All right, so let's read. Let's go and read 9 and 10. Verse 9 and 10.
It says, having made known to us the secret of his desire, according to his good pleasure, which he proposed in him, to administer at the completion of time, to gather together in one all in Messiah, both which are in the heavens and which are on earth in him.
Okay, very good. So over here he talks about the secret of his desire. In verse 9, he talks about this mystery of his will. Okay, Paul, he's describing for us the new covenant. That's what he's talking about. The manifestation of grace. Your relationship now with Yeshua, the fact that he's bestowed upon you that the Ruach HaKodesh, he has made known to us his secret plan. Right? There was a thing that was shut, that was closed to those that was disconnected from the Almighty. But because now of being reconnected back to the Father through the Spirit, he's made known to us the secret of his desire, according to his good pleasure, his character, which he purposed in him. Right? Again, when we talk about his grace, we talk about his character. He has a way about him, the Most High does, that he wants to cause for his people to be, his character to be infused in us, so that we now could be reconnected to him and know what it is that his will. We don't know what the will of the Most High is when we disconnected from the Most High. How are we supposed to know what his will is and we're not even connected to him? You can't know, right? But when the Spirit of the Most High comes and dwells on the inside of you, and your eyes then are opened, right? And the mystery of his will, the secret of his desire is made known to you. All right, so read verse 11.
In whom also we did obtain an inheritance, being previously ordained according to the purpose of him, working all matters according to the counsel of his desire.
Okay, very good. So again, this idea of this inheritance that we receive, right? Just like Israel ancient Israel back in Numbers chapter 34 inherited this land of Israel, right? In whom we also did obtain an inheritance, just like them, being previously ordained according to his purpose, just like them. Now, to a different degree, we see from a spiritual perspective. Okay, but it's different, but it's the same. It's different, but it's the same. Let's look back to, let's go back to Deuteronomy. It's different. It's different, but it's the same. Okay, I'm just going to put that up there, right? It's different. Inheritance is different, but it's the same. All right, let's go back to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy and 33 and verse 4. What's that say?
Moshe commanded us a Torah, an inheritance of the assembly of Jacob.
The law, the Torah, is the inheritance of the assembly of Jacob. The law is the inheritance of the assembly of Jacob. When we think about what we just read over there in Ephesians, the inheritance that's being spoken of is a spiritual inheritance. But when we think about the spiritual inheritance, the Ruach HaKodesh is the spirit, is the law of the Most High in your heart. The Torah in your heart is your inheritance, is the inheritance of the assembly of Jacob. We teach the children that verse in a song form. Yes. Because the law indeed is your inheritance. But there's something else though. Exodus 6. Read 6. Read verse 8.
And I shall bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh.
The land also is an inheritance. Right? So you got the Torah and the land is an inheritance. You got the Ruach in your heart and the land. You have a spiritual and physical inheritance. They had the law and the land. We have the law in our hearts and the land. It's different, but it's the same. And so when we think about the Torah for what it is, what is it? 24. Verse 24.
Therefore, the Torah became our trainer unto Messiah in order to be declared right by belief.
The Torah is a schoolmaster that brings us unto Messiah. The Torah is a schoolmaster that brings us unto Messiah. So if we rightly understand what it is that the law is teaching us in the first place, it points us towards Messiah. And so the thing that he did first, if we understand that properly, it gets us to Messiah. It gets us to this renewed covenant that he has caused for us to walk in now. This inheritance that we receive as a result of what it is that Yeshua has done for us. right? This empowerment that he puts on the inside of us that allows for us to go and walk into the land. Right? Same thing. We have the physical aspect that we see with ancient Israel, where they were empowered by the Most High to go over into the land based on their destined and preordained inheritance. And likewise, we have our preordained inheritance that we claim through the Ruach HaKodesh, so that we're able to walk into the land. All right, let's go down some. Let's go back to Ephesians, and we're just talking about our inheritance, right?
And this inheritance is something we should also pass down to our children, right?
Well, that's the nature of an inheritance, right? You receive a thing, but you pass the thing down, right? You can't take it with you. But wait, this thing is different from a physical inheritance, right? Because it goes beyond this realm, right? So whatever chicky lagas that I pass on to you, you can't take those things nowhere, right? After you out of here. But this spiritual inheritance and this physical inheritance, in terms of the Torah in your heart and the land, the promised land is something that is everlasting. And so when we think about it in terms of the physical, it helps us to understand that, yes, it's something that you receive from, that you've received, that you've inherited, that you pass on in your family, right? All right, so let's go back over to Ephesians and read verses 12 through 14. Over there. 12 through 14.
Says, for us to be the praise of his esteem, those having first trusted in Messiah, in whom you also having heard the word of the truth, the good news of your deliverance, in whom also having believed, you were sealed with the set-apart spirit of promise, who is the pledge of our inheritance until the redemption of the purchased possession, to the praise of his esteem.
Okay, something interesting happens over here. Something interesting happens over here when we look at these verses here. We're able to see a contrast when we look at verses 11 through 14 that's made between Israel and Gentiles. The author is an Israelite, of course, Paul. But if we look at verse 11, we see this is Paul speaking, right? Verse 12, let's look at this. For us to be the praise of his esteem. Praise. Judah actually means praise. Yahudim, the Jews, right? For us to be the praise of his glory. right? This is the Yahudim, right? Those having first trusted in Messiah, right? In whom you, someone other than us or we, in whom you also have heard the word of the truth, the good news of your deliverance, in whom also having believed you were sealed with the set apart Spirit of promise, who is the pledge of our inheritance until the redemption of the purchased possession. So it's interesting that we see over here, we see you, we see your, and we see our, right? Because he's speaking to, he belongs to a particular people, but he's also speaking to a particular people. And so this is expounded on in the next chapter, which we'll look at. But it's interesting that when you look at this, you're able to see this thing that he's talking about over here in these few verses over here, 11 through 14. But if we go over to verse 13, he says over here that you were sealed. You were sealed in him with the Holy Spirit of promise. He says, who was given the pledge of our inheritance. So we have this idea of there being this seal of the set apart Spirit and this pledge of inheritance. Let's see. We also see that same thing over in 2 Corinthians. Let's look at 2 Corinthians real quick. 2 Corinthians 1 and 22.
Who also sealed us and gave the Spirit in our hearts as a pledge.
Okay, very good. So we see again the same idea of a sealing and a pledging. Let's see what this says. Hold on one second here. We look at this. Who has sealed us and given us an earnest. So this word here, yeah, this is the word here. It's the 4972. Yeah. There's this one here where he seals us, right? With a stamp or a signet, right? A mark. With this pledge, this earnest, which actually this word here is actually a Hebrew word, right? It's just a Hebrew origin word that means a pledge. And so if we go back to the Torah, we're able to see the way this word is used, this word pledge, right? Because we're thinking about this, we're just over here talking about the Ruach HaKodesh, who has sealed us and gave the Spirit in our hearts as a pledge. And this word that is used again is this Hebrew word arabon, which means pledge. But I want to look at how this word in the Hebrew is actually used. If we go back to Genesis. Genesis 38. Read 17 through 20.
17 through 20. And it says,
Ari,
it says, and he said, let me send you a young goat from the flock. And he said, do you give me a pledge until you send it? So he said, what pledge should I give you? And she said, use your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave them to her, and went in to her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and removed her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Yehudah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend, the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her.
Okay, so the pledge that Judah gave to Tamar wasn't just a word, right? It was an actual thing. He wasn't able to say, I swear that I'll come back. I promise that we'll square up later. I promise you. I pledge that I'll do it. Right? This word is a type of payment. It's not the full payment. You hold this, it's like a pawn, basically. You take your things to a pawn shop, you give them the thing, they'll give you some money, right? And then you go and use the money or whatever, but you come back and get the thing, right? It's a type of exchange. Okay, so this idea of this pledge is this thing that's given to show that there's going to be more that's given later. This thing that's given that shows that there's going to be more that's given later. People talk about the fact that this new covenant. They look at the new covenant and they say, well, Jeremiah 31 and 33 or whatever verses. Here, let's look at it real quick. 'Cause we gotta talk about this real quick. If we go over here and think about this pledge, this thing that's given, you hold on to this pledge. You hold on to this, and then I'll come back and give you more later. And so if we go back over here, people get stuck on this. People get stuck on this right here. 31. Here, read down through 34.
Says, see, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land.
Oh, hold on. Just look at that. He said he strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mizraim. By his grace, he brought them out of the land of Mizraim. He's given the people the strength, power, and ability to go into the land. To go out of the land. His grace got them out of Mizraim. Not only got them into the promised land, but got them out of Mizraim. Keep on.
Says,
my
covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahweh. Says, for this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahweh. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts, and I write it on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know Yahweh. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahweh. For I shall forgive their crookedness, and remember their sin no more.
Okay, very good. So this is the verse right here. People, they get caught up on this one right here. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know Yahweh, for they shall all know me. We still got teachers, so we ain't in the new covenant. That's what people say. It says right here, this new covenant, this thing that he gonna do, we got teachers, so therefore we not in the new covenant. But you don't understand that the what Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and 22 and Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 13, where he talks about the seal and the pledge. The pledge is a down payment on something that that is, you're getting a piece of it now, and you'll get more of it later. And so when we think about what is being talked about over in 2 Corinthians in chapter 1 and verse 22, this earnest of the Spirit is a piece of the Spirit that you receive now, and you're going to get some more later on. Who also sealed us, but you're sealed with the pledge, though. And so you've been sealed with the pledge. And so the thing has begun. And he promised to finish the thing. Right? You got sealed with the pledge. And so this is a very important part of this thing to understand, is the fact that when we look over, well, we can go back to Ephesians because it says the same thing over there. Chapter 1, that verse 13, that the same situation over here is the idea of being sealed with this pledge of our inheritance, which again is the Ruach HaKodesh. Right? It's the manifestation of grace. Right? It's the Ruach. It's the new covenant. It's the Spirit in your heart. Okay? It's the new covenant that has begun already. Because he's already put the down payment down. All right, keep on going. Verse 15, read down through 17.
15 through 17. Says, for this reason I too, having heard of your belief in the Master Yeshua, and your love for all the set-apart ones, do not cease giving thanks for you, making mention of you in my prayers, that the Elohim of my Master Yeshua Messiah, the Father of esteem, would give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of him.
Okay, very good. Again, just like as we said before, looking back in Isaiah chapter 11, we talk about the spirit of wisdom and revelation and the spirit of knowledge of him. This is the Ruach. This is the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? This is the inheritance. This is the grace that the Most High gives to us so that we're able to go over into the promise. 18.
Says, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, so that you know what is the expectation of his calling, and what are the riches of the esteem of his inheritance in the set-apart ones.
Okay, very good. So again, what does it mean for the eyes of your heart to be enlightened? What does it mean for the eyes of your heart to be enlightened? That's the Ruach HaKodesh. So that you're able to know what is the expectation of your calling. That's the Spirit of the Most High. What are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the set-apart ones? All these things got to do with understanding the Spirit of the Most High. 19.
Says, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who are believing?
What is the exceeding greatness of his power towards us? Is the Spirit in us and us going forward and destroying the people that's in the land of Canaan. It's us walking out his will through the power of the Spirit, according to the working of his mighty strength. This whole thing is talking about us and our inheritance, which is the Torah and the land, which is this Torah in my heart and the promise, the land of promise. which again we see an example of that when we go back to Numbers chapter 34. Let's see here. Do I got the New American Standard Version on this? Oh, I don't. Wow. All right, let's go to it anyway. Let's go over to James. Let's go over to James 4. James 4. 5 and 6.
Says.
Hold on one second. See, we can't get the we can't see that here. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can here, read it in this version here, but the New American Standard has a different take on it. Read that there, 5 and 6.
Or do you think that the scripture speaks to no purpose? Does the Spirit which dwells in us intensely crave unto envy? But he gives greater favor. Because of this he says, Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble.
Okay, so the New American Standard Version, which by the way is a literal translation, it's not figurative like some of these other. King James is also literal, but some things, kinds of you don't get it. But over here in the New American Standard, it says, "Or do we think that the scriptures speak of no purpose? He jealously desires the Spirit which he has made to dwell in us." He jealously desires the Spirit which he made to dwell in us. He desires for that Spirit that he made. He desires for that to dwell in us. But he gives a greater grace. Therefore, it says Elohim is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. He wants for the Spirit that he created to come and dwell in us. But he's opposed to those that are proud. But if you're humble, you are able to receive his grace. And again, the manifestation of his grace is this Spirit that he has made, that he desires to dwell in you. We got to understand that our inheritance is in fact this Ruach HaKodesh. We were preordained to be connected to the Most High. So we got to get connected if we ain't connected. Right? All right, let's go back over to Ephesians. What time is it? All right, let's keep on going. We ain't doing nothing but keeping the Shabbat. All right. Let's see. Go down. Read down to the end, verse 20 to the end.
Says, which he wrought in the Messiah when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenlies, far above all rule and authority and power and mastery, and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in that which is to come. And he put all under his feet, and gave him to be head over all to the assembly, which is his body, the completeness of him who fills all in all.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's go into the next one here. Let's read this, and then look again. Let's see, if we go down to 1, 2, 3, we see the same thing we saw back in the other chapter again with this whole idea of you and we, right? But we'll see how he expands on this idea even more so over here. 1 through 3. Go ahead, start reading.
Says, and you were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the ruler of the authority of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience, among whom also we all once lived in the lusts of our flesh, doing the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, as also the rest.
Okay, very good. So again, we see Paul is talking to people, talking about you. You were dead in trespasses and sins. I'm talking to the people who's not us or who is not we. He's talking to you, right? He's talking to Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
You were dead in trespasses and sins. You walked according to the course of this world. That's what you did. And then he says in verse 3, among whom also we all of us, now including his own self and his own kind, we all once lived in the lust of our flesh, doing desires of the flesh of the mind. We all did all of these things, right? We were all formerly lived in lust of our flesh, indulging in the desires of our minds. But all of these things, right? This was our former nature that he speaks about before the inheritance is taken or received, right? Because we know that the desires of our flesh and our mind can only take us to a place where we don't want to be at, right? Romans 6. Let's look at Romans 6. Read 15 down through 20.
Says, what then? Shall we sin because we are not under Torah but under favor?
Should we sin because we're not under law but under grace? Hold on. First of all, we understand that the difference is external and internal, right? Should we sin because the law is outside of us as opposed to the law being inside of us? That's what he could say. Because under grace means that we've inherited our spiritual inheritance, and the law's inside us now. But go ahead.
It says, let it not be. Do you not know that to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience, you are servants as of the one whom you obey, whether of sin to death or of obedience to righteousness? But thanks to Elohim that you were servants of sin.
You were that. Go ahead.
Yet you obeyed from the heart that form of teaching to which you were entrusted. And having been set free from sin, you became servants of righteousness. I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness and of lawlessness, resulting in lawlessness, so now present your members as servants of righteousness, resulting in set apartness.
Okay, very good. So again, we see there was a way that that we behaved in prior to the acceptance of our inheritance. But when we go to our lives post receiving our inheritance, there's a difference, right? Those old ways, must die. Mm-hmm. Because again, when we look at verse 3, the nature, it says among whom also we all lived in the lust of our flesh, doing the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath. In that former state, this is what we was inheriting here, was wrath. But read verse 4 and 5. Dude.
Says, but Elohim, who is rich in compassion.
He's rich in grace. He's rich in favor and mercy. Go ahead.
Because of his great love, with which he loved us.
It's not just something that's going on the inside of him. He's rich in compassion, and and because of his great love, which he loved us with, he's doing something to us as a result. Verse 5.
Even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Messiah.
He made us alive together with Messiah. How'd he do it?
By favor you have been saved.
By favor. But what does that mean? That means that he did it by grace, which means that he empowered us through his spirit to cause us to be able to walk out his will. The manifestation of his grace is the Ruach inside of you. It's the new covenant. It's that which makes you alive. We look back at the Torah portion, the grace that he saved ancient Israel with was empowering them to go and dispossess the people in the land of Canaan. So how much more so is the grace that we receive on this end of things? Let's see here. All right, go ahead and read down through the end. Hold on, because we'll close up here. Start reading here. Where do we stop off at? Verse 6. Go ahead.
Says start at 6?
Yep.
Okay. And raised up together and made us sit together in the heavenlies of Messiah Yeshua, in order to show in the coming ages of the exceeding riches of his favor and kindness toward us in Messiah Yeshua. For by favor you have been saved through belief, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Elohim. Mm-hmm. It is not by works, so that no one should boast. Yeah. For we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua unto good works, which Elohim prepared beforehand that we should walk with him. Okay. With them and in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so again, we think about this idea of being saved by grace. We're saved by grace through faith. We've received our inheritance from the Most High, which is the law in our hearts, which strengthens us and gives us the ability to walk in the Most High's purpose for our life. Not on our own strength. We're not able to boast about our own strength, power, and ability that we have to be able to walk in righteousness. We're only able to boast on Messiah and what he's done in our lives. Because verse 10 says that for we are his workmanship, created in Messiah unto good works. So the works that we do, the only reason why we're able to do it is because he has placed the law in our hearts, which Elohim prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Just like he prepared beforehand that Israel was able to walk into the land of Canaan and destroy the nations that was greater than them. Okay, verse 11.
Therefore remember that you, once nations in the flesh.
Oh, he's doing it again, right? You and we and us. Go ahead.
Who are called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, made in the flesh by hands. That at that time you were without Messiah, excluded from the citizenship of Israel, and strangers from the covenant of promise, having no expectation and without Elohim in the world. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. For he is our peace, who has made both one, and having broken down the partition of the barrier, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, the Torah of the commands in dogma, so as to create in himself one renewed man from the two, thus making peace, and to completely restore to favor both of them unto Elohim in one body through the stake, having destroyed the enmity by it. And having come, he brought as good news peace to you who were far off, and peace to those near. Because through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. So then you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens of the set-apart ones and members of the household of Elohim, having built upon the foundation of the emissaries and prophets, Yeshua Messiah himself being chief cornerstone, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set-apart dwelling place in Yahweh, in whom you also are being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in the Spirit.
Okay, very good. So, we're able to see that, as he continues on, he begins to talk about the fact that there's an inheritance for those that were afar off and for those that were near. There's those that was afar off and that was made near, and then there was those that was already near. He's talking again about Israel and the Gentiles. He's talking about you and we, or us, right? And so, but both need to be able to claim the inheritance, which is the Ruach HaKodesh that we receive through faith in Messiah. And so, again, understanding this thing, this grace, this thing that we receive, this empowerment that we're given to be able to go forth and manifest the character of the Most High. We have to possess his spirit, right? This new covenant thing is so important. It's an important thing to be able to grasp and to understand the fact that we are indeed in it now. He's given us the pledge of the Spirit in our hearts, so that he's able to come and finish what he started inside of us. Just quickly, if we just look at what Yeshua said in the book of Luke, in 22 and 20, he said right there.
You said what? 20?
Verse 20.
Okay. Likewise, the cup also after supper, saying, "This cup is the renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for you."
He said, "This is the cup of the renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." Yeshua instituted the new covenant with his disciples, and then it was finished off whenever the Spirit actually came. The Spirit actually came over in Acts 2 and 38. We see where the initial down payment was given to those that believed in Yeshua at the time. And so, again, we have to walk in this Ruach HaKodesh. We have to walk in the Spirit and allow for us to grow and for us to be able to finish the deal. Right? Because he's given us this earnest. He's given us this down payment so that we're able to finish the journey, so that we're able to actually go and walk in to the kingdom and perform his will, which is to receive the land, to receive the Spirit in our hearts. And so lastly, let's just read Philippians 1 verse 6 here.
Says, being persuaded of this, that he who has begun a good work in you shall perfect it until the day of Yeshua Messiah.
Okay, very good. So he's saying, that he has given us this inheritance, right? And he wants for us to be able to walk in this inheritance and allow for this thing to actually be perfected or brought to maturity in us, which actually is the full manifestation of the new covenant. Again, if we think about this in terms of Numbers chapter 34, the people, they had to literally go through and fight. Right? They literally had to go through and do what it took to dispossess the land. They had to go in and they had to tear up all of the things that the Most High said for them to tear up and tear down. Right? So they had to walk out the will of the Most High in order that their inheritance will be complete. And so the same thing is true for us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go and walk out the law in our hearts. We have to walk out the character of the Most High and manifest his character in this world so that we too are able to walk into the land of promise. All right, so that being said, is there any last questions, comments? Yeah.
I mean, I would say that anyone who doesn't know that we're in the new covenant doesn't really understand what the inheritance is.
Right. And yes, I mean that's
and people, they'll say we don't understand.
People. That's exactly true. We just sat up here and read all of this whole 2 chapters in Ephesians, where if we understand this correctly, Paul's actually describing what the inheritance is, and he's talking about the new covenant. Mm-hmm. He's talking about the Spirit in you. It's hard to talk with people who don't have the Ruach HaKodesh. Because remember, we looked and had talked about the spirit of revelation that comes with the Spirit. These are mysteries that are unlocked, but they're only unlocked to those who have the Ruach HaKodesh. And so, these are important things. It's the very thing that Yeshua came to even do. And so it's very important that we understand this. That we allow for the Spirit to do what it was created to do, and that is to get us over into the land of promise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so that being said, we want to just remind everyone to... we want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, leave some comments down in the comment section, hit the bell notification. We are going to be releasing the feast dates for the upcoming year that we will be, the schedule that we'll be on, we'll release that. I think we'll make a little video or something. We'll get it out somehow. But if you never hit the bell notification, you won't even see that. All right. So with that being said, we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And y'all willing, we will be back on next week with